Welcome. We're going to go ahead and start off with the stream from last night by Mario Newfall.
They are going to revisit the situation tomorrow morning. So we don't really know what that means, what's going on, why it's not urgent enough to interfere with it right now. But he says it is posing a threat to commercial air traffic. So we don't understand why right now they're pausing this operation.
Yeah, we do know that they are still diverting aircraft that were on approach to Billings International Airport there in Montana. That is still ongoing. We're not exactly sure why, but the fact that the DoD has confirmed the presence of an unidentified flying object should be pretty significant, should it not, Intel?
Yeah, very, very significant.
Intel, you got to
yeah, the story is just being, obviously everyone here raw and breaking. Probably might get the gun on some of it before I do, but yeah, this whole thing's just been weird. The original NOTAM didn't really have the full coordinates, and then they updated the NOTAM with specific coordinates for 100 nautical miles of the center of what that coordinate grid was, and then they just literally pulled it like 5 minutes ago. But they're saying that they're going to resume operations in the morning. That's just weird.
What do we know about that?
But they did, and then the F-15s that were scrambled. I'll check see if there's any update on that. But I don't think the F-15s have turned around yet, so I'm not really sure what's going on.
Yeah, well, we also know that they sent out KC-135 Stratotankers, and I'm sure you're pretty familiar with those, and we are trying to bring more military folks in here as well that can probably give us a little bit more insight on this. But it does seem that one of those Stratotankers was circling the area where that TFR was actually in place, that National Defense Airspace was declared by the FAA. So what would that tell you? They're used to typically refuel military aircraft such as fighter jets, correct?
Yeah, and they can also refuel drones as well. It looks like the Stratotanker is leaving the area, going west. So,
yeah. But what would it tell you? Actually, let's go to breaking 4 first, because he seems to have his hand up. Get an update from you. Go ahead, breaking.
I just wanted to make the point really quickly about how we found out about these two objects, right? It wasn't forthcoming from the administration. It was the end of a press briefing that occurred yesterday, and John Kirby was kind of wrapping up his statements, and he got a question from the press, and it was sort of like, is something going on in Alaska?
And let's be clear, John Kirby is the press secretary for the Pentagon, so go ahead.
He's no longer the Pentagon press secretary. He's actually moved to the White House as an additional resource. I'm going to find his exact position, but it's been a recent switch. But basically, he then pulled out this pre-written statement and said, yes, now that you're asking me about this, I'll kind of tell you that at 1:45, we kind of just shot down something. So it's a little weird. It's a little suspicious that that's going on. And I'm just going to make that point of how this all unfolded. We don't know if the administration would have been forthcoming if they weren't asked about it. We have no idea. We tried to contact our sources and we didn't get back in time for this space. But an additional piece of information from CNN shows that the pilots of the jets were conflicting. In some of them reported that it interfered with their sensors, these objects. Some of them said that they had no identifiable propulsion of the object and couldn't explain how it was staying in the air. So something is certainly occurring, and we don't know, obviously, if this third situation that has been put on pause over Montana is related, but it definitely seems that all three of these incidences are connected given the time frame. And but they are being clearly separated at this point from all officials, both military and Biden administration, from the Chinese balloon program and the balloon that was shot down last week.
Got it. All right. So okay, Aaron, jump in. I'll let you jump in first, and I'll go to Intel.
The 50 by 50 mile airspace what do we know about what's below that? What do we know? Where is that in relation to the nuclear silos around Billings, or where is that in relation to the location of the Chinese balloon?
I'm about to actually post that in the pinned tweet there. But if Breaking knows the information on that, or if Intel knows, then hopefully we can get an answer from them.
Yeah. So in relation to the nuke side of the question, I did make a tweet on that. So the closest nukes would be approximately between 90 and 131 miles west, southwest, and south of the NOTAM.
These are amazing times. I would say it was just maybe 3 weeks ago that I even became familiar with the term NOTAM. All right, let's begin here.
As the world watches and listens in horror, the peaceful pro-democracy demonstration in China comes to a violent and bloody end. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wolves hiding nearby, whispering do or die around me. You say your last good night while I get by.
There is another very important phase of warfare. It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
The target of psychological warfare is against the enemy's mind.
It is words and ideas.
The ammunition used by cyber.
Its mission is to influence the thoughts of the enemy soldiers, and at the same time
is expected and encouraged to study foreign languages and the social sciences such as history, economics, and sociology. He must have a broad and sympathetic understanding of all phases of human experience.
Gripping at my skin, the walls of night close in.
But the use of this force as an integral part of combat has now taken on new form.
As I wait to say my last goodbye.
Who are we? Good question. Let's go ahead and read to you 2 Timothy 3:13. This is Sunday after all. The King James Bible. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. Let's look at 2 Timothy 3, verses 1 through 17. English Standard Version. But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. Avoid such people, for among them are those who creep into households and capture weak women, burdened with sins and led astray by various passions, always learning and never able to arrive at a knowledge of the truth. So we'll stop there and continue here.
Extraordinary scenes at China's ruling Communist Party Congress, with the former Chinese leader Hu Jintao being led out of the closing ceremony in Beijing. As you can see here, Mr. Hu was sitting beside President Xi Jinping in the Great Hall of the People when he was approached by officials who took him by the arm and led him away. It's not clear what was behind the move during what's usually a highly choreographed event. Our correspondent Steve McDonnell has more from Beijing.
Incredible scenes there at the Great Hall of the People this morning, and it's left a lot of people scratching their heads wondering what's going on. I think to unpack this, it's probably best to take it chronologically. So the morning session initially was behind closed doors. Then the second part of the last day at the Congress, some journalists were allowed into the Great Hall of the People. Hu Jintao was sitting in the front row on stage, and then in front of the cameras, several officials came along and said to him, well, you could see they're ushering, you should go. He looks like he doesn't want to leave. But then he says something to Xi Jinping, who nods. He tapped his protege Li Keqiang on the shoulder and is helped off the stage. Now, there are only two possibilities, really. One is that this is sort of Chinese power politics on display with, Xi Jinping out with the old, in with him. There's something like that. And that was people's initial, feeling, the initial thought of what was going on. Really, though, I think what's much more likely is that it's something to do with his health. Because when you look at the...
Hu Jintao, was there a dispute with him and the current leader, Xi Jinping, concerning these actions we're possibly seeing from China at this time? Are these actions indeed from China?
This is a sweeping outage. We want to get right to NBC's Tom Costello, who covers aviation for us. Tom, what do we know? How many flights do we think are impacted here?
Well, at the moment, we've got more than 1,100 flight delays, and at the moment, about 95 or so cancellations. That may change through the morning. Here's what we know. This is the computer system that's called NOTAM, it used to be called Notice to Airmen. Now it's called Notice of Air Missions. And the bottom line is, this is the computer system that pilots rely on to find out the latest information from the FAA on air safety, for example, on whether a runway is closed or perhaps airspace is closed because of military operations or a rocket launch. That system went down this morning. The FAA has been trying to get it back up, rebooting the system piece by piece. They say that they are making progress, but at the moment, still, this NOTAM computer system is not up and running at full capacity. And as a result, the ripple effect across the country is that flights are right now, some are taking off, but for the most part, many airlines, United, for example, says that it is simply not going to allow flights to depart right now because it needs this computer system up in terms of safety. You don't want pilots flying into an airport if, for example, a runway is shut down, for example, or there are particular safety advisories. So at the moment, that has slowed operations. It has not completely stopped operations. You can see we do see planes on the ramp moving on the tarmac there at LaGuardia. This will probably, though, even if they get the system up and running quickly, this will probably, though, even throughout the day. As you know, these things kind of cascade. The good news is, for the most part, the weather across the country right now, except in the Pacific Northwest, is really not a big factor. We can tell you that flights coming into the United States from Amsterdam, from Gatwick in London, also from Frankfurt, they are still inbound as we checked with those particular airports and those flight operations. but this is all about the notice to airmen. Again, notice to air missions. They recently changed that. And as a result, this system, which is critical to air safety, is right now in sort of a hiccup stage. By the way, you may recall that they had a similar problem affecting only air traffic in Florida. This was back on January 2nd.
According to the Pentagon, NORAD first detected this latest unidentified unmanned object over Alaska on Friday evening. As they monitored it and tracked where it was going, it did cross into Canadian airspace. At some point today, President Biden and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau both spoke. They had both been monitoring the situation for the last 24 hours, and they ultimately decided that out of an abundance of caution, they wanted to follow the advice of their military leaders and authorize the shooting down of this object. Now, at this point, once this operation was underway, it was ultimately an American F-22 fighter jet that shot down this unidentified object over Canada. Now, there's still so many questions about what exactly this object entailed, including the size, its origin, and its purpose. And a few moments ago, the Defense Minister of Canada talked a little bit about what they know at this moment.
Recovery operations are now underway and will be supported by the Canadian Armed Forces in conjunction with the RCMP. This coordinated operation will allow a further investigation into this object. We have no further details about the object at this time, other than it appears to be a small cylindrical object and smaller than the one that was downed off the coast of North Carolina.
Talk about the catch of the day. It's the Chinese spy balloon found by the U.S. Navy.
The U.S. Navy coming in with the China balloon.
You can see balloon fabric on the boat deck and boxes being unloaded on the dock. The balloon was discovered off North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Debris from the shoot-down lies scattered across 7 miles.
Some of it's intact. They'll be able to easily determine what it was and what it was used for.
We're learning more about the stunning moment the spy balloon was shot out of the sky.
Break one, blast one. That is a big kill.
We have eyes on the balloon falling.
Hundreds on the ground watch the Top Gun drama unfold.
That plane just had a strike.
The moment of impact was captured by photographer John Snyder.
I walked out to the driveway in the front yard and I was like, oh, hey, there's the balloon.
Minutes after he set up his camera, the missile struck.
I knew I had got the shot. That's basically all it was, being in the right place at the right time.
This extraordinary image shows the payload of solar panels and spy equipment actually falling from the sky. It's the first time an aircraft has been shot down over
States fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command successfully took down a high-altitude airborne object off the northern coast of Alaska at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today within U.S. sovereign airspace over U.S. territorial water. On February 9, North American Aerospace Defense Command detected an object on ground radar and further investigated and identified the object using fighter aircraft. The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. U.S. Northern Command is beginning recovery operations now. U.S. Northern Command's Alaska Command coordinated the operation with assistance from the Alaska Air National Guard, Federal Aviation Administration, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have no further details about the object at this time, including any description of its capabilities, purpose, or origin. The object was about the size of a small car, so not similar in size or shape to the high-altitude surveillance balloon that was taken down off the coast of South Carolina.
All right, so you have a little bit of detail there. Let's take a look at this. Mario Knopfel shows a tweet per Wall Street Journal quoting U.S. officials familiar with the situation. The object shot down over Canada appeared to be a small metallic balloon with a tethered payload. And that's the boxed in emphasis there. Canadian Defense Minister Anita Enter described the object as cylindrical to reporters Saturday night and said it was shot down at an altitude of about 40,000 feet. She said it appeared to be smaller than the downed Chinese balloon. Just going to take a look at some of the retweets that I've done. So from raw alerts, NORCOM confirms that an unknown object has been spotted in an area near Lake Michigan. Fighter jets report scrambling to the scene. This as of 53 minutes ago. 6 hours ago, unidentified flying object has been detected near Rizhao in China, according to the Chinese state media, Global Times citing local maritime authorities. Shoot down by Chinese military is imminent, reports say. And we have this really interesting message from Ron. The U.S. Navy casually emailing each other about a time machine that they patented it. Quote, due to the nature of the emergent physics involved, it is possible to experience spatial temporal displacement effects by using this device system. So what do I think is going on? Well, I started off this video by harkening back to the FAA incident that occurred early in the month of January, where early in morning hours, flights were unable to take off due to an error in the NOTAM system. That's a point in time that possibly could be related to succeeding events. I get birdies in my ear all the time on Twitter and other sources. Some birdies have indicated to me that we're in the midst of a great, interesting experiment, really a conflict of sorts. There are numerous sides to this conflict. There's a mediator side. We're going to review some old content that I produced on my alternate channel, Spirit of It Meadows. Let's review something here. So from a video that was uploaded December 2nd, 2021, titled Semper Supra, Ingersoll Lockwood cover UFO operation high jump through Space Force logo, I noted that there's a special website called Ingersoll Lockwood that at one point in time made references to an operation that occurred in Antarctica during the Civil War era. This operation, high jump, as it's been called, basically describes complex conflict involving parties that at this point ought not to be mentioned on the YouTube platform, as well as the allied parties, engaging in a specialized type of warfare that much of the common populace is unaware of. Succeeding developments have occurred in this region of the world. Within this region, it's speculated that there are specialized bases that are not accessible to the public. It could be that classified craft are stored in these types of locations. It could be that there is an alliance that exists with, let's say, Russ, China, and a third or fourth party that could potentially utilize bases in desolate locations such as Antarctica. Why is it that we started seeing the balloon only a week or so ago, and now we're having UFO sightings? What explains the NOTAM FAA incident that prevented commercial aircraft from flying early January? Are all these events connected in some way? Is China responsible for the unidentified craft singly, or could there be other co-conspirators? Recall back in 2020, there's a lot of speculation of factionalism occurring in the military, where some servicemen, let's say either in the Army or the Navy, whichever branch for the US military, they may have found ways to create their own chain of command within an established chain of command. This is like a fantasy of some patriotic individuals that perhaps there is a growing realm of mistrust, a growing collaboration of individuals, either private or military, to create a bulwark of sorts, a foxhole against a coming controlled grid that's being established by the Western NWO. Why did this Custer individual, this Colonel Sean Custer, make an odd reference to a white rabbit while also being the author of strategy research project Unwriting the Future, Decoding the Next Strategic Shock, a document about gray warfare or fifth generation warfare?
Did I find? Sean Hunt Custer has written this, Unwriting the Future, Decoding the Next Strategic Shock. Decoding. Q is all about decoding. Hunting for the clues. Custer, White Rabbit, Red Pill. What is this about? What is this U.S. Army College document about? He wrote it. It says the class of 2018, so it's recently written. It turns out it's all about asymmetrical warfare, fourth generational warfare, and describing the difference between a strategic shock, a black swan, and a surprise, and also explaining a little bit about how we are being attacked. And I kind of mean, he's talking about the United States, but for me it feels like all right-leaning, non-communist, non-socialist people. We're being attacked in ways that baffle us, that defy a sort of straightforward defense.
General Dalley, I have a question for you from our chat room on the American Rock Radio fan page. Do you know who the individual calling himself or themselves, if it's an organizational effort, Q? What do you know about that? Was that part of the PSYOP? What are you at liberty to say? Or is it a bunch of bunk?
Well, let me just tell you that QAnon is tied to information. And it comes out of a group called the Army of Northern Virginia. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, this is a group of military intelligence specialists of over 800 people that advise the president.
And so
the president doesn't have a lot of confidence in the CIA or even the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, as much anymore. So he relies on these real operators. Most of them are special operations type of people.
Yeah.
And so this is where Q picks up and gets some of their information, as I understand it. I know what they're looking at now, these alternate technologies of actually creating a separate internet.
So I think that is where we're at with that theory. So potentially we could have a situation where a faction has occurred with certain aspects of the U.S. military aligning with Donald Trump and some others, waging a hidden war that is invisible to much of the public. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that there is no faction. The military is working in accord. And then we have a question concerning the objects. Do the objects come from our military or the Chinese military or some third country's military or off-world? Very fascinating questions. But I can only tell you that from certain indications by certain birdies, we are not really dealing with off-world applications of technology. These are all on-world. Now, whether it's from our time or a different time, that's maybe something that's subject to debate. Let's see here. Kagan's Looking Glass notes, all of a sudden, everyone is so interested in spy balloons. This entire thing feels like a psyop, does it not? And this person's quoting disclosed TV tweets. Canada closes airspace over parts of Yukon due to active air defense operation. North American Aerospace Defense Command is monitoring 1 or 2 more potential spy balloons. NORAD confirms it is tracking a high-altitude object airborne over Canada. In this context, seeing reports of balloons and metallic balloon objects with payloads versus car-shaped cylinders in the context of recent balloon shoot down, it does all seem to be coordinated in a way. But then you have to ask, is this a coordination with the US government and the Chinese government? Is this a Chinese government acting independently, and then perhaps the US government leveraging off the Chinese government's actions to create a Hegelian dialectic problem reaction solution situation? These are all things to consider. I would say, from observing how these events have unfolded, what impresses me is really just some of the other contextual information that I had received with certain claims that it's indeed us, the US, but really what you might describe as the hidden patriotic ones who are coordinating things. And that this has to do with a hidden war, perhaps involving the underground bunkers, perhaps involving a certain island called St. James, perhaps involving a few other really significant occurrences.
So, I mean, it's kind of far, but at the same time, I mean, pretty close. But yeah, the fields, the missile silo fields of Montana, the extreme outer edge of that is between 90 and 131 miles. In terms of what's directly below this town, I would have to take a few minutes to look around.
Do we know anything about directionality of movement of this object? Presumably it didn't fall from outer space into that 50-mile radius. So 90 to 130 miles doesn't seem terribly far from a critical site if the thing is moving when we intercepted it.
Yeah. I want to go upward just quickly. Nick, I'll let you come up with tweets and they'll do a bit of work in the background. I'll take over for a bit. Upwards, first time you're on stage. Anything to add before I ask a few questions? Upward news.
Sure, yes. So the Senator John Tester just tweeted, I am aware of the object in Montana airspace and remain in close contact with senior DoD and administration officials. I'm closely monitoring the situation and am receiving regular updates. I'll continue to demand answers for the American public. So it seems like the senator himself isn't exactly sure of what is going on, but it is nice to see that some Montana officials are recognizing the situation and the seriousness of it.
So just to get a good understanding and overview of everything, Rose Alerts, Breaking 4 News, you guys, by the way, Upward, appreciate that. And thanks for joining us on stage. Just followed you as well. Joa, you're a regular on stage. That's why I sent you through the invite. If you got any updates at all, please do unmute and add them. Otherwise, just give an overview for the audience. Rose Alerts, Breaking 4 News. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because there's just too many flying objects. I'm losing track. So we got the first one that started a few weeks ago that was shot down in the US. That was the first balloon that was shot down. Then we had another one shot down in Alaska. It wasn't a balloon, but it was an unidentified object. That was a couple of days ago. And now we have one in Canada that was shot down and another one spotted again in Alaska. Did I get that right? Is there 4 in total? 1 balloon and 3 unidentified objects. Rosalis, you want to take that one?
Yes, I would say that is mostly correct. This current one is currently unknown. It could be a UFO or unknown object, or it could be another Chinese spy balloon. We don't really know yet, but what you said so far is so far correct. So
what do we know about? So what do we know about the? So we know about the first one was a balloon. We know a lot about this. We have videos, we have photos, and that was all over the news. And I think we did a space about it.
yes,
Then we had the second one in Alaska. When was that exactly? Do you remember?
that was a few days ago, and they were reporting the known object was silverish and cylindrical, with like a size of a small car. So that was shot down. And then today they just shot another unknown object over Alaska, or not over Alaska, but in the Canada area. So yes, just nuts so far.
Okay, and I want to go quickly to, I've just got Avgi here, and I know breaking 4 news. You wanted to add anything to what Rosa Lurst mentioned before I go to Avgi, who's, I hope I'm spelling out the name, pronouncing the name correctly, who's an air traffic controller.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Nick.
let me ask you real quick, Jake, because you were tweeting about earlier that there were F-15s that were possibly scrambled out of Seattle. And then you also mentioned those, as we actually mentioned like a few minutes ago here, about KC-135 Stratotankers that seem to be making their way toward Montana. Do we know where those F-15s went? Could they have possibly gone to that area?
Yeah, so
Jake,
the
that was for Jake, actually.
You mean Rosa Lurst, or who exactly? Who's using him?
No, I was trying to go to AV Geek Jake.
Oh, Jake. Oh,
Hey,
shit,
yeah,
air traffic
so this
controller,
is-
Jake. Hey,
yes.
Jake, how are you, man?
Yes, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, man. Good, good. Yeah,
Hey,
sorry, not sure if
so
you heard
those,
Nick's question.
Yeah, no, I did. So the question was the F-15s, where were they scrambled out of? So those were out of Portland Air National Guard Base, part of the Oregon Air National Guard, co-located at Portland International Airport. So those came out of there, and they were on a scrambled northbound heading, which typically indicates that, I mean, I don't know if you remember a few years ago when the plane out of Seattle was hijacked. They came out of there. I'm not sure if I'm actually going through right now.
Did we?
You're dropping out.
dropped
Yeah,
out just
yeah. I think he's dropping out, Jake. Yeah, yeah. So I'll just get the team to DM him and let him know that he dropped out. I wanted to go quickly before you ask a question, Jake. Jake, are you back with us?
Hey, yeah, can you guys hear
Yeah,
me?
he's just muted. Breaking. Yeah, yeah, you're back now. I think you're choppy. I think you're on the way. You're in a car or something.
Yes, I am, and that's the wonderful part of the Pacific Northwest, isn't it? So, anyways, those
Oh, good, man, oh, good.
came out of Portland, and they were in a northbound track scramble, which is basically, I don't know if you guys remember that plane that was hijacked out of Seattle a few years ago. That was the same heading, so we were led to believe that there was something over Seattle, especially since reports on the ground indicated they scrambled with AIM-9 and AIM-120 missiles. And then about 30 minutes after that, we noticed KC-135s out of Fairchild were scrambled, and they were on a southwestbound heading towards the Portland area, and then they turned eastbound towards where this area where the NOTAM and the TFR was over Montana.
Nick, did you have any further questions for Jake?
Just going to briefly break to record a different perspective of the matter. Really, this YouTube that's being produced is for preserving certain aspects of the historical record, so people will be able to see things in context in terms of what was being discussed for a given point in time. And just see if I can find something good here. Just take a look at Michael Koos' perspective here. All right.
Shot down. One over Alaska, just north of Alaska, right off the coast, and one in Canada. Two objects. One roundish, supposedly a Volkswagen size object, and some weird reports like this one from CNN.
On Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the the object interfered with the plane's sensors. Other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that. Other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this is all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until...
Wait, what? Are we like, is this like for real? Is this the real UFO shit? Like, okay, so let's be devil's advocates here. The first pilots, they went up to it. Their stuff starts going weird and wacky. That's everybody knows. That's standard UFO stuff. All right. And then, the other pilots, they go and nothing was wrong. And then we shot it down. So, it could be a balloon. They shot it down just north of Alaska, right off the coast. And the question is, okay, so the military was like there right away. They shot it down because they knew it was iced over and that it would land on the ice. So again, devil's advocate. If we've got crack top military personnel, they're out there right away within a short period. They see it right away. They find it, identify it right away. It's sitting on top of the ice. Now, if it's a balloon, like a weather balloon, don't you think that would be reported like immediately, because it's like so much national attention, like, right? They would go like, yeah, guys got out there, they found out it was a weather balloon, just kind of, that's what it was. Saturday night, here we are. U.S. jet shoots down object flying over Canada. What? What is going on?
Yeah, it's a good question.
US
What is
fighter
going
jet
on?
Shoots down unidentified cylindrical object over.
So we have an object that was shut down north of Alaska. We had another object that was shut down in Canada. And I believe the specific location had an interesting name. Was it like Cumland or something like that? Let me go ahead and try to pull it up here. Careful. Yeah, UFO shot down over Cumland. Okay, so that happened. So we got north tip of Alaska. This location here. We have a third location in Canada. That's not this location where something was shot down. So that's 3. Like, what is going on? And how many sightings are there even? Or you have to keep track of this.
For Canada. And of course, Reuters and Associated Press are where most of the media companies get their news, which they're just kind of standard. This is the reporting. Wait a second here. Cylindrical object over Canada. Where have I seen cylindrical objects before? Oh yeah, in like all these UFO reports all the time. So, okay, here's the deal. There's obviously, after the Chinese spy balloon, we're a little on edge. So let's just say they're monitoring things more, which we know they are. NORAD, which monitors North America, our defense system, just like upgraded their systems like a year ago. So thoughts are, this is a weather balloon and a cylindrical object that got shot down over Canada, and they're just, totally scientific things that we, some poor scientist in Yugoslavia just had his like weather balloon shot down. Or maybe it's all those like UFO drone things that are all over the place, By UFO, I'm not saying like extraterrestrial, but I mean, or third thing, maybe they are weather balloons, or maybe they don't even exist, and this is all just a conspiracy to get us into believing about, UFOs. So, weird times. Oh, and
yeah, weird times indeed. Yeah, I was corrected live. Apparently, it's town, not a land.
One last thing. So the Chinese spy balloon thing was a really big deal for people. We had like congressional, hearings with like triangle-shaped UFOs hovering over, our military ships off the coast of San Diego last year. I believe that was last year. Where has that gone? The Chinese spy balloons, right, but apparently drone technology, and that just gets dropped. The news doesn't even go like, well, what about that again? My quick take on that is they're not Chinese drones. That was a good excuse last year. Now this year it looks silly because really, I mean, what's the likelihood that China's operating amazing drones? So here's where that gets convoluted. There's all this talk now, all these military experts, all these generals and so forth, who are all these pundits on all the news networks right now, from Fox to CNN to everything, to absolutely everything, are all going, well, this is really good now that the Chinese balloon has been downed, because we're seeing what they're working with, and we're realizing like they're kind of working off 1970s technology. Like, yes, these do give you some more insights, but it shows that maybe their spy satellites aren't as good as we thought they were. And we've learned a lot about that with Russia and their military this past year, because both worlds deal with a lot of corruption. Not saying ours doesn't. We just spend a lot more money, and it is more focused, and there is a lot more oversight in our country on defense projects. So the idea that these battleships with this night vision footage, those were Chinese drones off the coast of San Diego. Now, drones, what are these, like nuclear drones? They obviously didn't fly all the way, where are the Chinese ships then that they'd be launching off of? You see how that whole thing doesn't make any sense now?
Yes, it is. It is quite strange. It's going to try to quickly pull up something else live that could be helpful for filling in context. Let's see. Kevin Wesley's. So someone actually went ahead and synced it. So you have this individual. Retirement in honor of Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Wesley. So this individual managed to find that he actually didn't release footage that was previously uploaded to YouTube about his perspective of the major event. I can't recall what year he said he tried to upload it. We can go ahead and look at that. The reason I'm bringing this individual into the conversation mainly has to do with the question of technology and what the military is capable of. Previously, on my alternate channel, I covered this controversial topic of reality paradoxes, where history could be altered in some way by means we can't really understand, to allow for the existence of perspectives of events that did not exist prior. So we have this individual who posted the video in the 2000s, maybe 2007, when YouTube was created, 2008, who knows, but accidentally left it in private. Very, very coincidental. Yeah. Is that something that would really happen? On Reddit, they tried to dissect this individual's past and determine that he seemed to have had top secret clearance, meaning that he could be sort of implicated in retroactive changes. The reason the controversy of retroactive changes is important to this discussion of what we're seeing currently is this notion that does it indeed have to be aliens visiting the Earth causing the sightings, or could it in fact be people from a different associated reality, or perhaps from a different time, interacting in our location, in our time, to exact some type of change? This is something that should be reflected upon a bit more. It gets to the notion of the meaning of synchronous occurrences as well. Let's go to this point here.
Alex.
Yeah, I'd like to go to him because he's got information.
Well, I don't have anything like breaking on this subject, but I do just want to kind of provide a little bit of historical context to this. We're obviously dealing with a couple of different things here. Of course, there's the Chinese balloon that flew over the mainland United States and was shot down off the coast of North Carolina. And then we have the incident on Friday where we shot down something over Alaska. Now we may or may not have something over Montana. But specifically with the incident over Alaska yesterday, and also potentially with the incident tonight over Montana, there is some historical precedence with this. And I know it's kind of laughed at, UFOs, haha. But I did quite a bit of reporting on UFOs. And this is somewhat reminiscent of something called the 2004 Nimitz incident, which was an encounter of something that was described to be very much like the object encountered over Alaska. This was encountered in 2004 off the coast of California by a carrier group, a couple of different fighter squadrons. And the object that was engaged in that encounter sounds a lot like the one that we saw over Alaska. Car-sized, metallic. We don't know what's holding it up in the air. We don't know what means of propulsion it has. And so when people talk about UFOs,
raised by the public
comparisons to the
over order
Nimitz
to
incident, which is so famous in those communities, gets people really excited. And so I worry that maybe some of that excitement about that is starting to bleed over into these other instances where, a lot of this seems to be happening very quickly, very, very rapidly in conjunction with the Chinese balloon incident last week. I don't want to be jumping to conclusions here, saying that there is, UFOs, there's more balloons, say what one thing is definitively or not. I just worry that people are going to hear UFO and be like, oh my God, we got an alien invasion coming here, when that's just certainly not the case.
I do want to go, Grant. I know you were trying to speak earlier, then I'll go to All Source afterwards.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So,
Grant.
I've owned some aircraft, and we have one that flies at 51 to 52,000. Most commercials flying at 41, and most of the time it never hits there. I was asking the captain, how many times have you been above 41,000 feet on any of the Boeings or Airbuses?
Captain,
So
is your connection better now? Yeah, it is.
I got my earpods in, so my microphone should be better. I don't.
Yeah, it's much better now. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't hear him.
I think he's dropping out. Yeah. I'll go to All Source while I. Oh, sorry, I just muted everyone. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, and then for the room, I mean, if you guys are talking about alien, like alien UFOs or military UFOs, my point about the 41,000 is most of this military equipment is flying at 40,000, 38,000, 39,000 feet. Like, this would be, there's no way in the world that the U.S. military is going to start shooting shit out of the sky that it doesn't know what it is. It's not even real. They're going to know before they attack something.
And can I get more clarity from anybody? Maybe also, I don't know if you can answer that one, but not being able to shoot out the unidentified object in the dark, How common is this? Maybe Alec, we can go back to you, as you got a lot of experience with UFOs. Can you give any context on what that could mean? And if anyone else can, from the audience or from the panel, please, audience, do DM me or put in the comments if you do have any experience and you can give more clarity on this. What does it mean exactly? You can't shoot it down in the dark.
So I think that the issue was that is they couldn't provide a positive ID, the issue over Montana, and that's why they decided to do this kind of this weight approach. And specifically, maybe there was concern more like because the Montana is probably more. There's more civilian population and the concerns of that they can't do proper analysis of where the debris field would be. But I mean, they the U.S. Air Force can't shoot down things at night. They have FLIR capabilities. But there might have been something that when they saw a closer observe, that maybe they noticed it wasn't necessarily a huge threat and they wanted to wait until the morning to get more identification to really figure this out. But again, I think I'm going to go back to my previous comment in the beginning, right? And I think this is when I first spoke is the Chinese spy balloon incident, I think, caused a change, right? I think there has been a deliberate attempt by the administration because of criticism that was leveled for it for allowing the spy balloon to go through, that they changed the rules of engagement. And I think the issue is if this is an aircraft that is flying, something is flying over U.S. or Canadian territory, that should not be there. That it is not either civilian or allowed to fly up there through FAA or whatever the Canadian equivalent is. We're going to shoot it down, and I think that is because of the criticism of the Chinese balloon, and this is a new rule of engagement, and this might be a more recurring issue.
But guys, if they're going to wait until morning to shoot it down, that means it's another balloon, not a jet, because no aircraft has 8 or 9 hours of fuel capacity.
Let me ask you all, Source, on that topic. How often would you say that the U.S. government, because their initial claim here was it was a UFO, and then they said it was a radar issue, and now you have U.S. congressmen coming out and saying that it's not a radar issue, it's an actual UFO. How frequent would it be for them to just have some sort of anomaly where they have a false alarm on a UFO like they claimed about an hour ago?
I can actually speak to that a little bit, and it's not like crazy common, but we do know with when you say UFO, of course, that's just military parlance, or for anything that's unidentified in airspace. It can be absolutely anything. It can be your neighbor's homemade hot air balloon. But the thing that our military members are sometimes seeing that are called UFOs or sometimes UAP, that are actual craft that we can't seem to match in combat. These things, they're not easily engaged because they seem to have some kind of radar to feed.
I do have to jump in on that point for radar.
Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
So I'm an air traffic controller, and we use radar pretty often, obviously. And as far as like getting blips on the radar that you don't know what it is, happens countless times a day. What do you mean countless? At least 50 times, or we literally lose count. Now we're dealing with blips that are a lot lower, so it could be a flock of birds or even a drone, or like one of the other members said, potentially like just your neighbor's balloon or something like that. But it's the same type of technology when you're looking at like 60,000 feet, 40,000 feet. The only difference is there's not a whole lot that's going to be up there other than something that's deliberately placed like a Chinese balloon or something like that. But yeah, as far as they don't know what it is, that would kind of make sense as far as at night not being able to get a proper ID on it and just seeing a small blip on the radar.
Okay, well, let me say this real quick. It says that the United States says that the object shot down over northeastern Alaska yesterday is the size of a car. We knew that part, but it did not have the ability to maneuver, and we do not know what the origin of the craft was. And earlier today, CNN actually reported that pilots that were assigned to take care of the aircraft or the unknown object in the air were saying that they were so confused on the propulsion system of the aircraft. So why are we still looking at this as, we just have no idea where it came from? Or do we not have the ability to track these things, days ahead?
Exactly.
Yeah, note the confusion about the propulsion system of the aircraft and other reports about having anomalies occur in the actual aircraft the pilot's flying. So those two features, if they're true, suggest that they're dealing with some type of unusual technology, maybe a type of technology that can alter gravity. and we'll be paying more attention to this topic. I guess really we all will. It may be another distraction by the screen to prevent us from looking at other revelations, perhaps concerning the man behind Little St. James or other controversies. But this could also be a significant change in world history relating to power plays, either by foreign powers or allied hidden patriotic powers, which are still not well described and have been lurking in the shadows. I thank you guys for viewing, and we'll catch you back on the flip side.